we are closer to the salesman world than the artist world, and we have to sit between those two. Our job is not to literally sell. Our job is actually to make people fans of the product, and if they're fans of the product, they'll be open to the offer that is given to them. So like we try and stoke fandom.
This is the Snarketing Podcast, for marketers, by marketers, talking to marketers with just a touch of snark. Now, here are your hosts, Valerie Vespa and Matt Wurst.
Welcome to this episode of the Snarketing Podcast. I am Matt Wurst.
And I am Valerie Vespa.
You know, it's good to hear your voice, Valerie, because this episode is quite unique in that you were either so sick, parentheses, asterisk, or hungover, close parentheses, I'm not sure. But this is strange. It was just me talking to our guest.
I'm sorry. I feel very terrible about that. I was so under the weather, and my son gave me something over the weekend, so
There's no need to apologize. The episode was actually great. You haven't heard it. I'm excited for you to...
Are you going out on your own now? I'm scared.
No, this was a one-time only thing. But
okay, good.
This is a surprise for you. You are going to... I mean, it's interesting because you prepared. You did your homework. You know who Jason is. You've seen his work. But I had to pull double duty. And
I know. Thank you for that, Matt. You're the best.
Don't ever get sick again, please. Can
All
we
right,
agree?
I know. Yes.
All right.
Yes.
So here's what we'll do. We will cue the episode. You will listen to it for the first time, just like all of our listeners, and then you will be back for the next episode. Deal?
Can't wait.
All right. Speaking of we will. Let's talk about this next time because this was a trip for the ages, and I'm excited to catch up with you about what you saw, what we did together, and how it went. But in the meantime, it was a festival for creativity. Let's talk to the Chief Creative Officer at Saatchi & Saatchi, LA and Dallas, about what he's doing for the Olympics, which kick off in just 2 weeks.
Fabulous.
His name is Jason Schragger. His title is Chief Creative Officer at Saatchi & Saatchi. He's lived everywhere. He's also worked everywhere. And now he's here talking with just Matt for this episode only. His work with Toyota for past Olympics has been outstanding, and it looks like this next campaign for the Paris Games is going to be something special. Let's meet him now. Welcome, Jason, and take it away, Matt.
Hi, Jason, and welcome to the Snarketing Podcast, or it's really just one half of the Snarketing Podcast today, because before we jump in, I want to apologize and let you know that the better half of this co-hosting tandem is so sick that she cannot join. She's been sick before, but you are going to miss out on some, I would say, thought-provoking questions, but more importantly, the laugh track that comes along with anything that you and I would say. So I will apologize.
I definitely need a good laugher. So, hi, Matt. Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you for being here. And tell me, where in the world are you right now?
Right now, I am sitting in the basement of a house in Amsterdam, so you might hear trams coming past. I apologize for that, but rainy Amsterdam.
Will I hear any boats passing on a canal or any bicycles as well? Because that's what I know. That's Amsterdam to me as a New Yorker.
Definitely bicycles. I'm a little bit far from a canal.
Okay. Well, you are just a hop and a skip and maybe a short train ride away from Paris, where I know we are weeks away from my favorite sporting event. I have a sports marketing and sports background, but the Olympics to me are the dream event, not just because they happen every 4 years, not just because I've had friends who've competed, but because it's the only real event that unifies every country. The World Cup does a mediocre job of bringing that together, but you've got a very special connection to the Olympics that in your role I would love to explore. Tell me whatever you can share. I mean, this is going to go live probably right around when the Olympics kick off. But how are you involved in the Olympics? Let's just start there. And I'll let you answer that however you'd like, open-endedly.
So the Olympics, as you said, one of the most beautiful events. I wish it could happen every year, but they can't, and that's probably a good thing because that's what makes them beautiful. And I hope that this year brings as much peace as it has in the past. It is definitely a celebration of human movement. It's a celebration of that we all come from different places, but we can compete and end that day as friends. So rather do it out in the sports field and sort of get all that out and sort of leave as friends. About 7-8 years ago, Akio Toyoda signed up to become a major partner to the Olympics and the Paralympic Games. And at the time, it was a little bit like he's had this vision of, the celebration of human movement. And Toyota was going from, this car company to this mobility company. And he saw that as just an incredible platform to sort of create that change. The sort of problems, not his problems, but the sort of issues to getting there were that he had these two big holding companies, Dentsu and, Saatchi and Publicis, who were his agencies around the world. And he wanted to create a global campaign. And I remember walking into the chief client in America, and he said, I want you to meet someone from Dentsu, and I want you to work very closely with them. And I want you to work so closely with them that you're holding each other up on stage at Cannes together, and that the two of you become close. And in fact, the two teams become really close. And he said that, he charted the course for us, and it's been one of the greatest experiences. I think, we had to overcome everything to sort of just be the humans that get together for Toyota. Yeah. This, I think, is a fourth or fifth, including the winter. So, like, we're including every 2 years. Um, but it has been prepared for the whole time. So, like, you're not wrong when you say that. So we did a whole lot of work, firstly in Pyeongchang, and then Tokyo. We've worked between the summer and the Winter Olympics, and every year we've sort of had a different ability to talk about different things as we've grown the story.
So is there a specific campaign this year that is launching that you've been working towards, or is it more I mean, look, every 4 years the Paralympics for me has become a more integral part of the storytelling. Are there strategies or specific things that you've done to boost visibility or viewership or just the awareness of the Paralympics, even with Toyota campaigns?
Again, Akira Toyota really, his vision was that the two Paralympics and Olympics will be on the same platform. And, we took that to heart. Even, we literally put the two logos together as a partnership logo, which had never sort of been done before. But there were so many things about both that were really important. There's something really beautiful about the Olympic Games, the way that it touches everyone. It is the pinnacle of human performance, and it's all about sort of, everyone in the world has a dream that they can fulfill. Everyone has an impossible thing that they want to do. Like all these athletes from all around the world go, I'm going to win a gold medal. It's this, probably as a 6-year-old or an 8-year-old, they have this impossible challenge and they go and do it. The Paralympics brings something different, and these stories of the Paralympians are the most incredible stories. I mean, these are the athletes. Like they are athletes that have had to overcome something or work with something to become fantastic at what they do. And some of the most inspiring people I've met have been through the Paralympics. There's been something that has opened up my eyes and something that we've been able to put on a bigger stage. We've sort of worked with para athletes to be in the Super Bowl. We've worked to get more hours to, for people to watch the Paralympics. I think we've like doubled the hours at NBC actually promotes the Paralympics. So it's been great.
Well, not to be the snarky marketer in the
Please
room,
do.
although I guess that's my role, but I guess for programs like this and campaigns and the creative is important and telling these great stories is important. But at the end of the day, Toyota is also a business, right? You are their agency partners. How do you measure, or whether it's this campaign or others, how do you generally evaluate the success of a campaign beyond just it made people feel good? You talked about increasing viewership. Does that convert and translate at the end of the day for the client in a meaningful way?
Well, we had this wonderful client who's since left Toyota, but his famous quote was, "I want 33 seconds of the product in a 30-second ad." And suddenly we're doing this campaign where there's no products, and the products that we have are sort of like future-facing products. And it was like, well, is it going to work? The answer is it sort of worked probably better than any other campaign for Toyota. And what it did do was start to give Toyota a humanity that actually existed for such a long time. Like, if you work with Toyota, they're the most human company you'll ever work with. But to the outside world, they're all about the boring stuff, dependability, reliability, all those things. So it actually brought to the forefront how incredible their engineering is, but how human they are as well.
So that humanity that drives, I think, many of us in this industry, right? Sometimes it's left brain, sometimes it's right brain centric. But I'm curious now, as we go back and focus on you, like, where did that initial inspiration to pursue this path first? Was it first born? Were you that 6 or 8-year-old who said, "I want to win a gold lion"?
No, I was a lost 20-year-old that was studying finance and economics, and went to cousins on the east coast of Australia, and in their house was a Reader's Digest, and I read the Reader's Digest, and inside the Reader's Digest was an ad for Award School, which is sort of the advertising school in Australia. And it literally was one of those things where I was like, you can do that for a living? And the second I sat down in the first class, it was truly love at first sight.
So you grew up in Australia? Is that where you're originally from?
I'm originally from Zimbabwe, and
so this convergence of accents. I'm usually great.
Exactly.
But, so it sounds like you've had a diverse upbringing, and I know professionally you've worked in a number of markets. You've lived or worked on most continents, maybe all continents. I don't know. I don't know how many continents there are. I guess I'm incontinent in that way. But how has working in these diverse markets, Asia, Europe, influenced the creative approach?
Well, I never planned it, but I'm super lucky that I did do it. I just said yes to a whole lot of people, and then ended up in all these places. And what it's done is allow me to see through a culture into a human. Because what I realized was that actually we're more similar than we are different. And the first thing you have to do is get past the culture into the human, because whatever's happening is sort of a human reaction. And once you can connect on the human level, you can see how the cultural influence is affecting the human emotion. So like some cultural influences are joyful, some are really bad. Whatever it is, it's affecting something that is identical to all these other people in some way. So it helped me see the human, but it also gave me access to all these different ways of being able to see culture. Growing up, I grew up in Africa, and then Australia, moved to Singapore, Amsterdam, Berlin, a little bit of Buenos Aires and LA. So it's incredible how we all tell the same stories. We all tell love stories. We all tell like horror stories. We all tell the same things no matter where we are.
You've created an alternative, maybe even more creative way to say the cliche that people in our industry say, like, "Oh, you got to understand your audience,"
Yeah.
right? It is different cultural contexts. Were there early creative campaigns either that you contributed to or had a significant impact in shaping that changed or altered your career development that made you bounce around a little bit, or were there mentors that pulled you from one country, one company to another? How did that work?
So I started in Perth, which is a little small town on the west coast, and all the advertising was on the east coast. And I remember going to Sydney, and people looked at me as if I was sort of like an inbred farmer, which was so weird to me because it was like, you're from the west coast, and at the time it was. And then my partner and I won a whole lot of awards at Cannes for these little tiny things, and it was one of the first times that people from Perth had won it at the festival. He got offered a job in Singapore, and then we both ended up at BBH there. And when I went to Singapore, I was Australian. And it was this weird thing. I was either going to go to Sydney, where I was from Perth, and that was a bad thing, or I went to Singapore and I was Australian and all was fine. And that taught me so much about how, like, the way people view you is so it makes no sense, but it happens, and it's the truth. It's their truth, you know. And then I went to Singapore, and that was weird because I was different to a whole lot of people there. So
well, I find it fascinating as an American that this is not just a provincial, regional challenge that we face here. Because, look, I'm in New York. You're occasionally, if not often, in LA. I think of LA as this whole nother world.
yeah,
They don't know creative there. They're not New Yorkers. But then when we all go somewhere overseas, it's like, oh, here come the Americans,
yeah.
right? And that's a story that we have to deal with.
Please pardon this brief pause as I read some words from our sponsor. Let me introduce you to a game changer in the lead generation arena, Leadfeeder. We all know the struggle of identifying those elusive website visitors and turning them into valuable leads. But what if I told you there's a tool that not only promises, but delivers on supercharging your lead generation and sales efforts? That's Leadfeeder. Imagine having the power to identify companies visiting your website, track their behavior in real time, and seamlessly integrate it all with your CRM. What sets Leadfeeder apart is the ability to provide detailed insights into visitor behavior, helping your sales team prioritize efforts and close deals faster. With customizable notifications, lead scoring, and GDPR compliance, Leadfeeder is changing the game. To revolutionize your approach to leads and deals, visit leadfeeder.com for a free demo. LEADFEEDER.com. And now, back to the conversation.
In our industry, storytelling in advertising has become this buzzword. I guess as you're telling your story and you tell the stories of others, what does that term elicit from you when I say it? Or how important is storytelling in your campaigns? Like, what's your approach to that as far as just crafting narratives?
You know, a whole lot of people sort of like don't like the word storytelling. I love it. I think it's all we do. I think storytelling is there's this thing that I learned about the Aboriginal people in Australia, which is basically they have no fixed address. They sort of wander around Australia, and if you know anything about Australia, everything kills you. So you would think that they would all die, and that would be the end of it. But they have this incredible storytelling habit that they do wherever they go. And these stories are incredible. These stories are basically called the dream time. But the dream time is actually a map of Australia. So as they go to different places, they'll tell different stories. And in their head, it'll be a map of what's around. So they'll talk about a goanna and a large this and a large that. And those are visual things that can be part of like a map to get to some other place. And part of the storytelling is talking about what will kill you and what will save you and what is medicinal and stuff like that. And without stories, they wouldn't have survived. And someone asked me about 3 months ago to define, what a good idea is. Like, how do you define it? And I sort of said, and I had to think about it for a while, but it was sort of a persuasive story that gives you an emotional reaction. That is a big idea. That doesn't matter whether it's a tweet, doesn't matter whether it's like an event, it doesn't matter whether it's a TV ad or an out of home. If that thing that you see tells you a story and gives you an emotional reaction, it's a big idea.
Well, I like the provocative nature of the question, right? It's like, what is art? And it's different for everybody, but at the end of the day, it has to have an impact.
Yeah.
Right? Like, creativity there's an output that has to drive an outcome. You're in this balanced world, just like I am, where you're mixing together creative output for outcomes and commercial goals when you're working with large scale campaigns like Toyota. Do you think about that balance, or do you feel like if you achieve one, it will drive the other?
I think that you're working for purpose. And I think that we're not artists. Like, I buy into that whole sort of cynical side where it's like, we don't do artists. Like, we do not do art. We work with some artists that help sort of make stuff look, beautiful and everything like that. But we are closer to the salesman world than the artist world. And we have to sit between those two. Our job is not to literally sell. Our job is actually to make people fans of the product. And if they're fans of the product, they'll be open to the offer that is given to them. So like we try and, stoke fandom. But I have a saying that I use at work all the time is fall in love with the problem and not the solution. And the whole idea to that is like, if someone gives you a problem, just fall in love with that. There'll be solutions that come out of it. But if you get too dogmatic about the solution, number one, you're going to get hurt. Number two, you actually might not solve the problem. And you might be so stuck to it that you end up with something that only works for you.
It's an interesting way of putting a challenge that I think I face every day, which is like, my wife will tell you I complain about everything. I said, no, I am identifying problems. That's all it is. So you've helped me reframe that conversation in a very innovative way. So thank you.
You're just a lover. You just love problems.
That's solutions. Anyone come up with a solution. Not everyone can find the problem, though.
Oh no.
There you go. So with your team, right? You manage and cultivate and nurture young minds. How do you foster that innovation, especially in this ever-evolving landscape where you blink and the technology has changed, or machines are coming for your job, or right? Is that something that you think about as well and focus on, or are there other tactics for motivation, for innovation?
The first thing I try and do is make them do it without the technology. It's sort of like learn the basics and then become the best at the technology that you can be. So like AI is not going away. Like all these other sort of, social platforms, they're not going away. Nothing is going away. So you have to be brilliant at it. But you also need to know what's behind it. Otherwise, you'll be used by it rather than you use it for you. So we're a human industry at the end of the day, and we learn as much as we can. But when you start the job, you start again, and you really have to. It's like an apprenticeship. My dad was a mechanic. And I understand the whole apprenticeship model of like, standing with someone, them making you do all the grunt work so you can learn how to do the sort of bigger work and the better work, but just sort of learning by being sort of attached. And I really believe in it. I think that is how you sort of grow people. And I try and explain why I make decisions rather than just making them as well, so they understand the thinking behind it. But it's tough. It's tough because people can skip a whole lot of fundamentals, and you might not spot it until they get a little bit older, and might be too late by then.
Well, it's not lost on me that as your father is a mechanic and you are working with cars,
Yeah,
indirectly, maybe. I don't know, can you like open up the hood of a car and point out the
that's
thing, the phalange rod that connects to the carburetor tube? Can you do that? No, because I
no, that's
can't.
the thing. Like, I was a rebellious person. That's why I'm in advertising.
All right.
And so the last thing I ever wanted to do was cars, which is hilarious that I actually am in cars. So, yeah, go figure.
As you've grown in this industry and worked at, I mean, it's an incredible resume of both acronyms as well as named agencies over the years. But have you adapted and learned, or has your leadership style changed over the years, given all the things that are changing and all the things that you help influence and change?
I think the biggest thing that changed my leadership style is America. I think outside of America, advertising is a little bit more of a hobby or a craft or something like that. It's not as much a career. It's very different. And I think the US is such an interesting place. Like you sort of talked about it before about going out as an American and what everyone says and stuff like that. And there's this a little thing where people think that Americans are the best speakers, and they are very good at speaking and sort of like saying what's on their mind and stuff like that. But I always say, actually, you're missing it. Americans are the best listeners. And elsewhere, people will be a little bit more dogmatic in their thoughts, whereas in America, a lot is taken in, and what is said is really, really, really sort of like important, and people really take every single word. So it taught me so much about what I say. Instead of just talking and like jumping around, I had to refine my language because it's a bigger industry. There's more people. We'll have creative reviews with 100 people on them. So you have to really refine your language. And I think that scale has led to a communication in America that is very sophisticated. It's not to say that it doesn't exist elsewhere, but it's pretty refined here in a way that's probably different anywhere else.
Well, now I feel a lot of pressure to be an even better listener in this conversation. So thanks for that.
Pleasure.
So when you're hiring or you're evaluating talent, and no doubt you've brought in incredible people, what qualities are you like? How do you discern that someone's a good listener when you're interviewing them or looking at a book when their entire job is to show you and tell you that they're awesome? That seems like a challenging task.
Yeah. Well, they normally ask really good questions, number one. So that's always a giveaway. They normally do something outside of advertising, which doesn't necessarily say that they're a good listener, but they're curious. So I think that, a lot of the things you can never, I don't know anyone that gets it right all the time hiring people. Like we've hired some really good people, but I've also hired some duds where I'm like, how did I do that? So you try your best. That's another thing where it's speaking to your talent team. They know a lot more about this. So I'll get them to like, what questions should I ask? Like, what should I do? Because I don't want to make mistakes. Like your team is everything. There's nothing else. We don't, like now we have some sort of programs that can help us, but really it's your people.
So you mentioned and talked about finding inspiration or creative passions outside of work. What are some of the things that you do outside of the advertising world that you're either an outlet or an input for the way your brain works?
Well, my number one thing is travel. Like obviously from my, I love it. I think just watching people from around the world is the most fascinating thing because all the bits are the same. Like you wake up, you're tired. Some people jump out of bed, some don't. Like you eat breakfast, some don't. Like you go to the bathroom, you shower. Like all these things are identical, but like in different places they're all slightly different. So it's so fascinating to watch. I love writing. I'm not a good writer, but I love writing stories and stuff like that. Like I just enjoy that process. They don't, not for any reason, but I enjoy telling stories.
Well, you and I have kids around the same age, right? A 13-year-old and a 10-year-old, and we were talking about this earlier in terms of just the personalities. Is it interesting for you to travel with your kids and kind of see them experience these things either for the first time or through their own lens? And does that change the way you perceive culture or
Yeah,
civilization? I don't know, that's a really big question, but like for me, I find that fascinating. Like the first time I see my kids experience something, I'm like, wow, that is not how I thought they'd react.
yeah. I Well, firstly, everything my kids did. Now they sort of jaded and 10, but
No, at
before
13,
that,
at 13, they're an asshole. Let's be honest.
exactly, yeah. But before that, when they were like babies,
Yes.
that was the most incredible thing because literally touching grass would be like, oh my god, that feels so weird, or rolling down a hill or whatever. Like I saw the whole world again. Like I think every generation that comes, I can't wait to be a grandparent to see the world again because you forget the magic thing. My kids, interesting. One of them hates everything new until he's there. And so, like, getting him there is an impossibility. But once he's there, he just dives into it. And the other's the exact opposite. Can't wait to get there, and then just wants to be in his iPad. So it's a weird sort of thing, but yeah, it's these life memories. It's these things that they get to do, and we get to do together. That is, is incredible. And they've become adventurers. Like that's their sport, is to do these adventure things, whether it's scuba diving or fly. One of my kids flies. Yeah, they both scuba dive, and all
Fly
these
like
sort of,
airplane fly?
yeah, airplanes. Yeah. Because he said to me, "Can I fly an airplane?" I said, "If you were old enough, you could." So he then Googled it and was old enough. And I was like, "No, you can't." And then we went to the airport. I said, "If they allow you, yes, you can." And they said yes. And I was like, "This is totally wrong." Like he was 10 when he did it. So don't tell your
Wow,
10-year-old, but he
that's
can go flying if he wants right now. But
no, mine are into race car driving, so that's
that you can't
that's
do. But a plane you can. Go figure.
a speed of a different kind.
Yeah.
Uh, you know, I think of the generations coming up, our kids, or maybe even the generation slightly older, the Gen Z, Gen Alpha. I I'm fascinated by a lot of their behaviors, the way they act, the way they think. But it also makes me realize that I need to constantly refine my skills just to keep up with them and understand them. As you get older, mature, and this next generation comes up, um, what does the future of advertising look like to you? How do you foresee shaping this future in these next 5, 10 years?
So, a scary thing happened to me today. I found out in a good way. I found out that my 10-year-old has started a company with his friends. And the company is basically that they steal candy from home and then they sell it like they were like 8 Skittles or $1. And they do all these different things. And I was like, so I was like, so basically your business, they were like, basically, parents will give kids a dollar to take to school, but they won't give them a dollar to go to buy candy. So they bring them a dollar and they spend candy on us. So it's like your whole business model is around like avoiding the parents saying no. And they're like, yeah. But the interesting part of it, and this is what's scary, is that they drew a logo. So they came up with a name. They call it Smiley Deluxe. They drew a logo. They then put it into ChatGPT and said, can you make it into a logo? They then went like, can you make the lines thicker? Can you turn it upside down? And they have this incredible logo. They now want to make a website, and they've made $100. These kids have like, so it's like, and
Have
I'm
you
like,
talked to them about the cost of inventory is not free forever in their business model.
I don't want to burst the bubble, but what it showed me was like the cost to get into this business now is so much less. I see it as, someone said to me today as well, actually, because I was talking about this, and I was like, I really, are you not worried that advertising has become worse and it's just going to be? And I was like, no, I actually think because of this, all advertising is going to live, because the bad advertising is going to get good, and the good advertising, I hope, gets great, because the level will just keep rising, because it's so much easier to do good. It's going to be really hard to do great, but it's so much easier to do good.
I think in a lot of ways it's similar to, and I'm not comparing them, but the Adobe suite of tools, or video editing software, they've made creativity better because it's reduced time, and there are tools that enhance it. So for me, I see it that way. But if it ever gets to a point where the output that it can do autonomously is better than what we can do, and again, I think that's a far way off, and I think your job and everyone's job around you is safe, but you have to embrace it, and I hope you guys are embracing it. Like, how does technology influence the creative strategies that you guys are doing at Saatchi and Saatchi?
Both Saatchis are really enjoying it.
Okay. Maybe one more than the other a little bit, but
exactly. I think the Adobe thing is a great example. I think what it helped us do was speak to more people more personally. It's complicated now in terms of, like, we used to do a TV ad, an outdoor board, and a print ad. That's what we used to release. Now when we do a campaign, there's like 150 little things that we do. I think in 5 years, there's going to be 150,000 little things that we do. Like, it's just going to become more and more personal. It's going to, like, you will see an ad completely different to someone else's. And the creativity is going to massively be needed to sort of create the new. That is not happening. The copying is happening. The new is sort of where we need to sort of like spend our time. And to be honest, a lot of this stuff is going to take away the stuff that we don't really want to do. Like, we want to do some stuff, and it's going to speed up the production, which I think we all love to speed up the production. I'm impatient. I just want to see it when you sort of invent it, and that's happening. So I think it's great. Long-term effects of it, I have no idea. But right now, I think it's great.
I think the long-term effect is that your kids are going to be able to do your job better than you can in like 6 months.
Well,
maybe a year. I don't know.
I don't know if anyone will have a job. Like, I think we might as well go back to sort of like living to live rather than to work. We'll see.
Or we're all going to be employees of Smile Deluxe is what's going to happen.
Exactly. Yeah.
We're all going to be brand side.
Candy to sell.
Well, that's you hopefully you get a title in that company, because you're certainly putting investment in.
Exactly. Yeah.
So after the Olympics wrap, and I don't know if there's like a cool down period or a hangover effect, but where do you go from there once summer ends and fall begins? Are you starting to think about the next Olympics, or are there other projects that happen in between? Like, where do you go from here?
Well, the Olympic project, it sort of goes in these 2-year cycles. And so, like, as we finish one, we normally have sort of, because we finish it, 3 to 6 months before it even the Olympics starts. And then we only start sort of 3 to 6 months after the Olympics. So there's normally this year of like doing other things. Toyota has a number of partnerships, NFL, they do other sort of brand work and stuff like that. So we sort of recalibrate the people and do something else. And there's a lot of listening to do at the end of the Olympics to sort of see what worked, what didn't, where it's going. Different places almost provide a different mood at the Olympics. I think Paris really wanted, after COVID, to be the open games, to be the games where all the people united and came together as a community. So you have to find and see what is bubbling up to sort of tap into that.
So are you with the Toyota NFL partnership? I know that Toyota is the presenting sponsor or whatever it is for flag football, right? I don't know if you're involved in that. I happen to be ensconced, entrenched, fully committed to flag football. I'm the coach of my daughter's team. We had an undefeated season, and now I want to become a professional flag football coach. Has that, like, do you see this taking root as the next pickleball? Like, is this going to be a thing?
Like, who knows? I can imagine it. Like, there's probably it's safer to sponsor, so it's all good.
Yes, yeah. Well, if you need any emerging stars who will work for Candy in an upcoming Toyota flag football commercial, I have several kids here in my neighborhood.
I see how it's all coming together. I love it.
There you go. Well, before we jump into our lightning round, which is how we always end this conversation, I wanted to thank you for sharing time with us. I know it's later in the evening where you are.
Oh, good.
But I look forward to connecting with you in person sometime soon.
Yes.
So you ready for the lightning round? Are you ready to go?
I am ready to go.
This is meant to be instinctual, not thoughtful. Whatever you say goes, unless we have to edit it out, of course.
Exactly.
That work? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So here we go. Lightning round. First question: favorite city you've worked in?
Amsterdam.
Okay. Not far from where you are. Next question: do you own or lease a Toyota?
Yes.
Okay. You have to practice what you preach, right?
100%.
Okay. Favorite ad campaign ever?
I would say actually the Toyota Olympics.
Oh, okay. So you're a homer there is fine. That's fine. It is good. I'm just...
Yeah.
What is the most used app on your phone?
Safari or Netflix?
Netflix, yeah. That's it's taken over. Well, maybe you'll be able to do some spots that can be dropped into Netflix now that it is an advertising powerhouse.
Yeah.
You talked about morning people or night people, or which one are you? A morning person or night owl?
Not even a question. That I could answer blindfolded. Night.
I don't know. Well, you're doing great at night here. Who knows when the listener is enjoying this, but thank you for your energy. I want one word. You said you're not a writer, so just one word to describe Saatchi and Saatchi.
Wonderful.
Ah, okay. And I have two more questions. One is, what is your creative pet peeve? What's the biggest either common mistake you see in the industry or the thing that rankles your chain?
Lack of ambition.
I mean, that could be true in any industry, but that's, I think that's... That's fair. Look, if you work in this industry, so that is your answer. We will move on to the last question, which is, and you may not be able to do this in a lightning style, speedy response, but let's come up with a hypothetical challenge, which would be, I always like to challenge my creatives when I'm working with them. If you were going to create a campaign for a product that's mundane, I don't know, nail clipper, what's your first step in that creative approach?
What do people get out of using it? What's the beauty in the purpose?
So is it the beauty or is it just the benefit?
I think more than the benefit. I think it's it is a benefit, but what do people passionately do after they have used it? So if a nail clipper is do they go to the beach and show off their toes? What is the benefit is shorter nails, but there is...
So it's adding that emotional story to whatever it 100%. Contributes to as a product.
Yeah.
Wow.
So much easier to talk to people about what they love than about nail clippers.
Well, it has been clear in this conversation, in talking to you, that this is something that you love. You have brought the benefit and the beauty to our dialogue here. We have missed our third member of what was supposed to be a tripartite conversation. Hopefully I was able to carry it. You did thank you for filling in.
Thank you. That was really wonderful. So
Jason,
it was
I
great talking
appreciate
to
it.
you.
Likewise, and look forward to seeing more brilliant, creative work come out of you and your team in the days, weeks, and months to come.
Thank you, Matt. Appreciate it.
This episode of the Snarketing Podcast was brought to you by Lead Feeder. It's how B2B marketers get leads. And what a fascinating episode it was. I feel like that's a guy who knows what he's doing, loves what he does, and is going to keep making amazing things happen in our space. Speaking of amazing, we're excited to have Val back for the next episode. See you then, and thanks for listening.